Welcome to the 10-year anniversary of the one and only holiCHIC. Without further ado, it is my honor to bring on stage the moderator for today's Q&A, my friend Simi Shah. Simi Shah is the founder and CEO of South Asian Trailblazers, which is an award-winning company, community, and agency dedicated to elevating South Asian voices. And through their podcast, Simi is known for hosting captivating interviews with trailblazers like Kal Penn, U.S. Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, no big deal, and obviously Megha and Pooja today. Through her work, she truly is building community and telling stories, which is more important than ever before because our stories matter, and I appreciate you for doing that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Trisha, for that very kind introduction. Welcome, everyone, to the 10-year celebration of holiCHIC. We are so lucky to be in the amazing company of three incredible leaders, the three leaders who have built this brand from the ground up over the last decade. And so I'm going to have each of them come up here and share a little bit about their specific experiences, and then we'll open it up to all of you to ask your questions. I think a lot of us toss around the words like decades, centuries, somewhat nonchalantly these days. But I want us to think about what 10 years really means. Where were you 10 years ago? What journey have you been on? Are you the same or different person? What's changed in your life? And that is the note I want us to start on as we talk about what it means to have built this company over the last 10 years. So I want to start by welcoming our first speaker, the incredible founder and designer behind holiCHIC, Megha Rao.
Thank you, Simi. Thank you.
10 years ago, you decided to start this company. Take us back to where you were in March 2015. What inspired you to start this company? Who were you then?
It's a loaded question. But, I think it goes further back, even beyond that day. And I think it comes back to my childhood, who I was growing up, and the experiences I faced as a young girl. And I'm sure many of you in this room can relate. I didn't belong to one world, right? I grew up, like many of us, as a daughter of immigrants, and I wasn't Indian or American. I was both. And it was a bit of a struggle, I have to be honest. Growing up in this type of environment, not really being sure of who you are. You're one person when you go to school, you're one person when you come home. And I struggled trying to understand who I was as a person. And believe it or not, it was the creative world that really helped me bridge that gap. And that was everything from dancing to art, obviously fashion and style, but that for me was my language, and it was my way to convey to the world, this is me. I'm the person that will wear the jhumkas with my jeans. This is the way for me to show the world that I am really proud of who I am, where I come from, but I'm also proud of this new world that I'm in. And so I'll take you back now to March 2015, where that little seed that was, I planted when I was 5 or 6 years old, the same age as Saya, now became, well, is there something here? Is there something deeper? Are there other people that are feeling the same way that I do? And I just started making clothes for myself, my friends, my family, and eventually that translated to a much larger community, which today is holiCHIC.
Can you talk about what your experience has been as a designer balancing South Asian culture and tradition with contemporary fashion?
Yeah, again, I'll take you back. This was wedding shopping. I don't know if any of you have experienced this, but for me, that was a big turning point. Going to India as somebody that was about to get married and not really being able to find clothes that resonated with me. Everything just either felt too over the top, it was too Indian or too Western. There was nothing that was quite in the middle that had a balance. And at that time, back in 2015, I felt that there was a big void in the market, right? There was really nobody in this space. And it was important for me to think about, well, we don't only go to weddings. We don't only do these things. We have family functions. We go to mandir. We have pujas. There's all types, and now obviously there's Diwali and there's all these different types of events. But that to me was missing. there was a void where there was this contemporary silhouette, and we wanted to find this bridge between taking Indian textiles and putting them in these modern silhouettes, like the blazer you're wearing, right? To give people options, to showcase their pride and their culture and who they were anywhere they were, in any setting. So even today, you know, this is something that's at the core of my designs is this something that is versatile? Is it wearable? Can it be worn to a variety of different functions? And does it fit our lifestyle, right? Because you think about something like the 5-second sari. The reason I created that was because too many people that I spoke to told me they don't wear a sari because it's too complicated, or they needed to call their mom, or they had to run into a bathroom to find an auntie to help them repin themselves. And I was like, this just seems silly, right? And yes, the pre-pleated sari has existed for years. But I said, how can we make it comfortable, modern, sleek, still rooted in tradition? And so things like this, where it's like, I want people to still feel connected to their culture and the fashion, but in a way that's modern and fits our lifestyle.
I love that, and I cannot tell you how many times I've FaceTimed my mom, asking her to teach me how to pin a sari. In creating this brand, I imagine it wasn't easy coming into this space as a new founder, building something from scratch. So can you tell us about some of the challenges you faced in the early days of building holiCHIC and how you grappled with them?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of challenges, right? Over the course of 10 years, I have to be very honest. There have been many days when I've woken up and said, why am I doing this? Is this really, is there something here in the future, 10, 15 years down the line? And, you know, going back to the day when it was around 2020, pandemic time, around then, and we were struggling. It was just me and Pooja back then. We had full-time corporate jobs. She was at Google and I was at Citigroup. 6-figure, comfortable salaries. We were living the New York City life, married, you know, I had my children. And I was like, why are we up at 11:30 at night speaking to tailors in India and trying to figure out sizing and all? It was a real big turning point for us, to the point where I was like, are we going to just shut this down? And I think for me, the biggest challenge was deciding no, that we're not going to shut down. Because listen, like anybody in this room that wants to become an entrepreneur and chooses to go full time, one day you're going to be in that situation. And when the mission and it's that important to you and the people that you serve, the answer will be yes, to keep going. And that's what happened, right? I thought about the core reason why I started, and that was there was a void. I knew it. The people around me knew it. I had a community now that was beginning to see the vision and believe in it, and I didn't want to turn my back on them when they needed us most. So I'm glad I made that decision, right? Because here we are, and there was no looking back at that point. So yeah, that was definitely the most challenging decision, was to keep the business running and operating.
Well, I think I can speak on behalf of all of us and say we're really glad you made that decision. In any entrepreneur's story, we know that the path is not linear. And amidst the trials and tribulations, there were also a lot of triumphs. Can you talk about any pivotal moment or strategic inflection point where you felt like we can really do this? A partnership or a moment that just felt like that watershed, yes, we should keep going.
Yeah, I would have to say it was Nordstrom. We had a partnership with Nordstrom, I believe it was last Diwali. And it was very difficult to get into the door, especially if you're not a brand that, you know, works with them today. But I'm so glad we did it. We kept emailing, kept knocking on doors until we got a yes. And we basically hosted a pop-up at their flagship location in Columbus Circle. And it was a great event. It was, you know, a buzzing 7-day event. But to me, what I walked away with was that there was an opportunity here for us to introduce South Asian fashion to a larger demographic. And it was a test. We saw people of all backgrounds, all nationalities, just curious and touching and feeling and asking questions. And there was so much curiosity around, what is this? Like, how is it made? And there was questions. And I realized that it, again, was a void where people are interested. You have a global consumer today that is savvy, they're traveling, they're looking for things that are unique. And I think holiCHIC can be that answer. I think we're still trying to find this fine balance between being right in the middle, right? Not too traditional, not too modern, but always staying true to our aesthetic. And for me, the response that we got from that pop-up, from everybody, from the customers, from the Nordstrom management team, from corporate, was a sign that we were in the right direction.
The final question I have for you is around the journey that you've been on over the last 10 years. I'm sure we have many entrepreneurs in this audience who are thinking about how they can turn their passion project into a long-term sustainable business, who can also celebrate 10 years one day. What advice do you have for them?
My advice is to find a team that can fill your void. And you're going to hear more from my team later today. And I'm really glad that we had an opportunity today to actually bring all 3 founders together, which we haven't done in a very long time, because it doesn't just take one person. Yes, I'm the designer. Yes, I'm the founder, but my skill set is around creativity. It's around design. And I needed to bring in partners that brought in different dimensions to the business. And you're going to hear from the operations side, from the business development side, from the finance side, right? Because you can't be good at everything. And sometimes it might just, when you're starting out especially, it may be somebody that's in your immediate circle. It might be a friend. It might be a colleague, right? But you definitely need to think about the pieces that are missing within you as a leader and work to find that void to build a really strong team.
I just have to say your passion is so palpable. I mean, like, how can anyone not feel inspired listening to this? Can we give a round of applause to Megha? Next, I want to welcome Pooja Desai Shah. She's the head of operations and the client experience at holiCHIC. So you lead operations and the customer experience at holiCHIC. Can you talk to us about what the biggest operational challenges were in the early days of building this company?
Yeah, so I'm gonna paint a picture for you. 10 years ago, we had our online site, we had an online presence, and if you went to check out with a product, it would say, okay, you'll receive your order in 4 to 6 weeks. We had to shift from, shipping out of our home office to transitioning to a 3PL, which we did with our partner Shopify, and it was an obstacle that we overcame. It took a lot of time, it took a lot of research and energy and learning the ins and outs of what a 3PL is, but that was it was much needed to be able to transition and scale.
It's interesting because as customers, we only see the front end of the business. But in the changes that you made over those years, you all have built a very loyal customer base. Can you talk about some of the strategies you implemented to help develop and cultivate that level of loyalty? I mean, and I say this to say that, and I know this applies to many of you, there are times where I go to events and everyone is wearing holiCHIC, and every time I see them at an event, they're wearing holiCHIC. And some of you are nodding because it's you. So I wanna understand, how do you do that?
We have the best community. We always say that. We're very, very fortunate to be part of the South Asian community. But what I will say is when Meg and I first started, we always knew that the customers were the backbone of our business. Without our customers, we had no business. And we both worked in client services at Citi and Google, and we knew that to be a successful business, we had to put our customers first. We had to listen to them, we had to make sure that we were transparent with them. We're never perfect in this area. It's always an area that we strive to get better in, but putting the customer first and always thinking about the customer first has definitely helped. Another area, another strategy is events. So today is a great example, but we really started doing events from the very, very beginning of holiCHIC. I think in year 1, we had our first pop-up, and it was literally in a closet in New York City. Like, it was so teeny tiny, but we wanted to make sure that we were in front of our customers. And every year since, we did a pop-up or a sample sale. We did a fashion show with Brown Girl magazine. We did an event with Shopify last year. We just made sure that we were in front of our customers to build that community. And then I would say the last strategy is, and I think Meg does a really great job of this, is just being really present on social media. She's definitely the face of our brand, and she's always keeping everyone in the know and just making sure that they know what's going on with the brand. And I think that's really helped as well.
Yeah, something I feel like we talk about a lot in the context of fashion brands today is feeling like you're being dressed by a friend. And you all always bring that experience, whether you're shopping online, whether it's something you see on Instagram, or coming to an event like this, and it's really immaculately done. As holiCHIC scaled, can you speak to the operational challenges you face? There are a lot of differences in bringing a business from 0 to 1 and then going from 1 to N. What were some of those changes you had to make?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, as I said, we went from being a made-to-order business to a ready-to-wear business, so a lot of changes had to be made. First and foremost, we needed a bigger team. I mean, me and Meg couldn't do everything, as she said earlier, like we didn't know how to do everything, we weren't good at everything, so we really honed in on the skills that we were good at, and hired people to do the jobs that we were less skilled at. So that was the first. Second, we really tried to find the inefficiencies in our business and tried to fix those problems by dividing and conquering. Like I said, you can't do everything.
It's clear that you're very expert in the ops and logistics side of the business. What advice do you have for the entrepreneurs who are trying to streamline operations while also staying authentic to the brand?
So, finding the inefficiencies in your business is the most important. And about 4 years ago, when we were at this pivotal change in our business structure, we literally wrote down every single problem that we had, and we bucketed in different areas. You know, finance problems, website problems, social media problems, partnership problems, and we listed everything out. And we divided and conquered, found different owners for each area. And it could be overwhelming to look at a list like this, and there were so many problems, it felt like it was like too overwhelming to handle. But we created a plan, a 30-60-90 plan of like, in the first 30 days, we're gonna accomplish this, in the next 60 days, we're gonna accomplish this. And that entire year, we were probably the most quiet that we've ever been as a brand. We were just head down and working on all the different issues that we had. But it was probably the best year that we had because we fixed all these operational problems and created processes and actually had a plan in place of how we go to market with products. So I would definitely recommend doing that for anyone in a similar situation. You know, we felt like we were on that hamster wheel, and it was the same thing over and over again, and that definitely helped. And I would say every year now since, our problems look different, but we look at it that way, right? And then it's always that customer-centric approach of like, how are we going to make this customer experience even better this year?
I love how tactical that insight is, because I think in a very social media heavy world, we all believe that you constantly have to be out and about to building your brand, but there's so much value in putting your head down and having a bit of an introverted fallow period to actually strategize. Can we give a round of applause to Pooja?
Thank you.
I know you have a lot of questions for them, but I have a third incredible member of the team to introduce, and that is Sachin Jangiani. Sachin is their head of business strategy and finance, aka the numbers expert. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
So, holiCHIC has grown from a passion project to a 7-figure business, completely bootstrapped. And we live in a world that loves to applaud raising outside capital, raising venture funding, but there's a lot to be said about a company that's able to sustain itself on its own. What are some of the key financial strategies you all implemented that has made that possible?
When I joined the team about 4 or 5 years ago, and we talked about our strategy, we said we knew we had something here, but we didn't want to raise capital to figure out how to build it. We wanted to build it, and then we wanted to raise the capital when the proof was in the pudding to scale it. Because to scale it is going to require a lot more capital faster, and we thought that was a better use of investor money, but also a better story to tell an investor like, hey, we've been doing this, we know how to run a business efficiently, we've grown it from X to X without $0 input from a investor capital perspective. Would you want to invest to help us 10x it? And I think that's a really better story to tell. As far as the strategy, the one thing I will say is, again, we're here at Shopify. This is our 2nd year together, and most of you know about Shopify as just like a website or a online store, but it's much more than that. It's really, we would not have been able to do the things we've done without them, because they have one of the services they offer is Shopify Capital. And we've leveraged that, and we've been able to, borrow money from them based on our last year's sales. So it's not based on finances. They see our revenue. They know what's happening. They give us capital on that so we can go buy inventory, invest in advertising, and then recoup our money, and then we pay them back based on our sales. That's been one of the most innovative financing tools I've seen, and one that's been really pivotal for us to be able to pull this off without raising money.
It's helpful to have actual resources and platforms that can help elevate that growth. Entrepreneurs and founding teams often struggle with the balance between aligning that creative vision while also staying in the black. Can you talk about some of the key financial decisions you all made to balance the two?
Yeah, I mean, it's an ongoing process, right? So with fashion, it's really interesting. It's not like let's say a skincare company that has like 5 products, right? Every season, we have to, Megha and Pooja really have to come up with a whole bunch of new stuff to get people excited. They have to fit right. They have to come here on time. And we don't know which one is going to necessarily do well. Sometimes we might have an idea, but sometimes things surprise us. And how do we plan to have limited capital and sort of allocate those resources to the right products? And I think that's just something that we have, again, not been perfect at, but those are the things we look at. We look at metrics of for example, we've seen a shift, right? In general, the world is, women especially are in yoga all the time, right? They're wearing athleisure everywhere all the time. Less, even to dinners out. So while these blazers are beautiful and the lehengas are beautiful, there are less occasions to wear them to because we're just not doing that as much. So, Megha's vision for Holy Yoga was perfect. Now that was a test, so we had a choice. Hey, do we go and invest this, again, limited capital for next season, all of it into stuff that we already do, which our audience knows about, or do we kind of take some of that away and try something different that we might have a pulse on? It may work, it may not. And Holy Yoga has been a phenomenal success. So that's kind of how we do it.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I'm on a Bhangra team, and I think I've convinced everyone to wear Holy Yoga to practice every week. So personally, I support that investment.
Thank you.
Can you speak to how collaborations with major brands like Nordstrom, which Megha spoke about earlier, Lexus, and others have helped enhance your growth financially?
Yeah, they obviously give us more brand awareness from an audience. I think that is beyond what we have. Obviously, we have an amazing community. holiCHIC was really it started, Megha made clothes for herself, then she made clothes for her friends, then she made clothes for a community, right? So it's been for us. But what we found is because of our community, now having the confidence and the desire to wear these clothes out in the world and not just at Indian events, other people have noticed. And that's led us to partnerships with Nordstrom's, McDonald's, Lexus. I mean, you name it, right? Diwali's become a very popular thing. When we were kids, nobody talked about Diwali. So the culture is growing, India is growing, the brand presence is growing, and all of that really helps us financially because obviously it opens up a whole new avenue of growth because now the whole world can wear this blazer or that blazer or Holy Yoga, So it just expands it beyond just a smaller market or a niche market. And I think that's really important, not just for the finances, but really for the culture, right? Like our message on our site is we want to keep the culture alive by sharing it with the world. And that we think inclusivity, which is all something we strive for, right? You're doing something because you believe we need a voice, but we also have to offer ourselves to be part of, we can't say, come and invite us, but this is not for you, right? And I think that exchange is starting to happen, and we're seeing it organically, not something we've been forced.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have this conversation because naturally we all start to build within the community, but eventually to actually scale a brand, you have to go outside. There are 5.1 million Indians in the US. There are 400 million people living here. The math has to math. We can talk a lot about everything you've done right, but I want to talk about things you might have done wrong. Looking back, is there any financial or strategic decision that you wish you would have approached differently?
Yes, there are a few. But here's what I'll say, right? you're going to make mistakes. You have to understand that. The one thing I'd say is we're very honest with each other as a team, but also we're understanding, I've made mistakes on the advertising side, maybe spend money on days we shouldn't have. We made money on the production side, or spent money on the production side. We've mistimed things. We made a lot of mistakes that have cost us money. But collectively, the goal isn't to be perfect, it's to make progress. And I would say that, again, without any outside capital, we've, I think, 8x our business in the last 5 years, which is when it really became a business. But that's actually a small growth. It would have been much larger, but we invested to get the business organized so that it can grow. And that's where we are today. We're finally in a place where Pooja's got operations dialed in. Shipping, the packaging, everything's improving. Megha knows exactly how the fits, the designs, what works, what sells. I've got the books in order, we're advertising. So we have everything in place now. And the mistakes probably helped us find things to improve. And so I'd leave it with that and kind of say yeah, we made a lot and it's okay.
Thank you for the candor. Now, the last question I have for you is, again, a lot of entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs in the audience today, what do you think are some of the most common mistakes, financial mistakes that people make in the early days, and what advice do you have to avoid and circumvent those?
In the early days, especially in today's world, I think some of the metrics are not focused in the right direction if you want a business, right? If you want popularity, yes. If you actually want a running business, because business has expenses, it has responsibilities. So when you start out, and you're just doing something for fun, that's okay. But as soon as you decide, hey, I want to have a business, which means you have people you have to pay, product you have to purchase, customers you have to satisfy, there's a whole lot of responsibility you just took on. So the mistake I see some younger founders or brands make as I pay attention to this space is they get too caught up in likes and followers and these things versus margins and customer reviews and repurchase rates. So I just think and some people aren't business people, and that's why like I said, you have to bring in a team that can kind of do it together. You can't do it alone. But those are really important things to look at if you want a business.
Your social media following is not a proxy for your customer base. And I think that's something that we all need to think about more critically in the world that we live in. Can we please give a round of applause for Sachin?
I think the discussion was, first of all, really fun, but it was very, much backward-looking and a recap of the last 10 years, and just given all the interesting things that you're doing, I'm curious to hear how you think about the future. It doesn't have to be the next 10 years, but just roadmap for the future, whether it's channels of distribution or building brand awareness or just new product categories. Would love to just hear about your forward-looking outlook.
I touched on our experience with Nordstrom and how we really were looking to take the brand now to a we want to invite the world in, right? To really understand and appreciate what South Asian fashion is. And so I think a lot of what you'll see in the coming years is a diversification of our products, where you're going to see more things like leggings, maybe an introduction to denim, things that you can wear every single day versus just an occasion. And I can't really say what it is now, but we have a big surprise announcement coming in a month or so, and that will also dictate a potential future for us as well. So big news coming soon, a couple weeks.
For someone who's starting out, how do you approach pricing your products?
Okay, I'll take that one. Well, the customer is going to determine, obviously, if they're willing to pay what you want them to pay or what the price should be, right? But to sort of back into that, obviously, the market research, understanding what your competition is, and if you understand the competition and how they're pricing, then you can understand how, and then think about how you're going to position your brand. You now can at least get a gauge of what that pricing could look like. Now, I don't know, you'll have to be in the market to find out if the customer believes you and responds to that. But for example, like if I were to sell soap, right? There's Dove, and then there's stuff at Whole Foods that's handmade, that's $30 a soap. And if I'm making something in the middle, I know, okay, well, I'm not $3 and I'm not $40, so maybe I'm in the 20s. Now, I have to also understand my margins. What does it cost me to make that and get that to the customer? Is there enough profit in there at scale to make that a business? If that makes sense, now you've got to test and see if the customer can respond and say, yeah, we believe that story you're telling us. Because pricing isn't just about a number, it's about an emotional value that somebody places on a product. So if you want to be, let's just say, premium, but your website looks like it's from 1982, like people aren't going to believe you, right? So that's sort of the combination of things I think you got to look at.
My question is more on the design aspect. Trends are kind of changing, like as time goes on. My question is, will holiCHIC adapt to those trends, or will it keep its unique perspective on clothes?
I love that question. I love that. I mean, I gotta be honest, I think about that every single time I design a collection. It's like, what's the future? What's in 2 years? Will people care? Will people want to express themselves and share this culture with the world? But for me, it's always going to come back to the roots and the why. And I think that's what makes holiCHIC so special, is that when I talk to people about holiCHIC, they can tell me what the brand is about. I don't even have to tell it anymore. And that is what I feel makes the brand so special, is that we have an aesthetic that people have come to recognize, that people have come to love, and that will always be at the core of what I do. Will it evolve? Absolutely. That's why we tested yoga, right? That's why we may experiment with jeans. I mean, I was talking to Saya, I'm like, what would you want to wear in like 5-10 years? She's like, I just want to make Indian loungewear and pajamas. And I'm like, hey, well, maybe that's a thing, right? Maybe that is something that we would incorporate in the future, because we always keep an open mind. Like sometimes it's my 7-year-old, sometimes it's me just being out and listening to what people are saying, the younger generation, but just having an open mind, but never always staying true to who you are.
First of all, congrats on 10 years. It's a big accomplishment. And also, I also read that you've grown sales by over 100% on average year over year for the past 5 years. So that's a great statistic. Just want to dig into that a little bit deeper. You talked a lot about community and the word of mouth, but is there really anything else that you've done, maybe it's a campaign or a really unique marketing strategy that you've employed that's really helped you unlock that exponential growth?
It definitely. A lot of the original growth definitely was infrastructure. Like when I came on board, I could see just from the social media and the reviews, and the people were so connected to the story because they all shared in that story. They were so connected to the idea of being able to wear their culture and their confidence out in the world. And so the first thing we did was really understand the customer, and that was organic, which we went from custom order to ready to wear. The instant we did that, I think we tripled sales, right? Because now people could get a lehenga or a dress or a blazer within a week versus 3 months. So that was the first thing. But as the organic started to hit a plateau, we started to run advertising. There was 2 things that we did. One was, all on Megha, is authenticity is the most important thing. And she started doing a lot of videos, and many of you have probably seen them. And if you see them a lot, that's good, because that's me doing
His ads
that.
are working.
But she does a lot of content about each product. That creates a connection with an audience. Like, this person cares that much, like they're wearing their stuff, and look at how they're wearing it, I can do that. And then we ran advertising to that, so that worked. The other thing we did, which was, again, sort of part of the conversation here today, is last season we did a full rebrand. Because we started to see, and it was just Nordstrom, Shopify, McDonald's, Lexus, all these things, but also even our friends, men, women wearing these clothes, not Indian, like blown away, can't get enough. So we started to say, okay, well, and we've had friends tell us this, hey, I love that. And they'd go to where'd you get it? They go to the site, their friend would tell them, like, oh, am I allowed to buy that? Because it was obviously all Indian models. And that was great up until that point. But now we opened that up a little bit more, right? We want to invite people and say, yeah, it is safe. Like, we're not offended that you're shopping at holiCHIC. In fact, like, we love seeing that. So a combination of things have all kind of helped that growth. Audience, cultivating connection, advertising.
In your experience, we know that India produces beautiful Indian clothes. But what's been your experience getting these contemporary silhouettes done in India? How have you navigated around that, given that you live here and production, I'm assuming, is in India?
Yeah, it's really challenging. It is really challenging, and I'm going to be very honest, because it's very, number one, it's difficult to communicate, right? That's the first thing, and I'll be anybody that's looking to do this in the future. It is a very, very big challenge, and we have, we're never going to be at a place where we're like, we've got it figured out, right? We just have to keep working. It's a relationship. You have to keep working at it. So we do many fit tests when we go through a design process, right? For us to get to this one blazer, there's like 10 to 15 variations of this blazer before we approve it. And sometimes even when it's done, I'm like, I still don't love it. It's still not perfect. And then we again try to improve it for the next round. And a lot of that feedback will come from our customer, right? So in the very beginning days, we would look at the reviews and see what people were saying about sizing, give that feedback, have weekly calls with our team in India and say, look at the reviews that we're receiving from our customers, right? Here's what we're seeing. We have to improve this, we have to fix the seam, we have to increase the length. And so it is something that we will continue to work towards. We are not perfect, but we are going to continue to strive to be as close to perfect as we can. So more to come.
I can add to that too. We also just didn't put all of our eggs in one basket. So we work with multiple teams, and over time we worked with, dozens of teams. And we would often give one style to different teams and see how that would come out. And some teams are better at embroidery, some are better at, one style. So I think test and iterate and evolve over time is really important.
How do you balance with design? Obviously, you're creative and you're coming up with ideas, but do you go to India like once a month to meet with your vendors and your manufacturers and your seamstresses, and you try and what's the balance and how do you manage it all? Because I raised 2 kids while doing it all, so I understand the challenges.
Early on, we made more in-person visits to India, but I would say during COVID, it became more of a virtual relationship. But once you find a team, there's no need to go there every single year or month or what have you. But we do have a really regular cadence with them. We have weekly calls and statuses, and we hold these teams accountable on all these calls. But honestly, because of the world that we live in with video and virtual meetings and whatnot, it's not necessary to go there all the time, but definitely when we were first building the business, it was really important that we were there more regularly.
I'll give you a quick example. We did the photo shoot for the last fall line. That was done on Zoom. The models were in India, the clothes were in India, the 3 of us were up all night on Zoom, like one eye open, except Megha, because she was excited to see her clothes on people. But everything has been able to do is done virtually now, and then I think Megha tries to get down there once a year to visit factories, see the tailors, and kind of add that personal touch to the relationship.
What is one parting piece of wisdom or inspiration you have for everyone today?
Keep going.
Don't strive for perfect, just start.
Build a solid team. Find the people. I love that. Can we give them a round of applause? And cheers to the next 10 years of holiCHIC. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.